Hey, 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 what's happening? Billy Carson here, aka Forbidden Knowledge. Let's see what's going on in the chat room tonight. I see everybody's popping in over here. I appreciate you. Let's see what's going on in the chat. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat room tonight. Everybody's filling up. Make sure you click that like button. Make sure you share the video. And let's get as many people on this talk tonight as we possibly can. Thank you so much. Let's see. I just saw somebody that said they made it to the chat, the comment chat for the first time. Ravine Hawk. What's up, Ravine Hawk? Hope I'm saying your name right. I appreciate you. Thank you for making it on here tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about UFOs and the Emerald Tablets. All right. So I've been talking for hours and hours on end, meetings all day, question and answer sessions from previous workshops, and a short break in between to get here. But I'm going to give you all the energy I got. All right. So, but I might need to clear my throat a couple of times because my voice is getting worn out. All right, but I do have some tea here. But we're going to make it happen tonight. It's going to be an amazing night. And I see everybody filling up in here. So this is great. All right. This is really, really good. Make sure you guys click the like button. Make sure you click the little bell so that you get notifications. If you're not getting notifications and you have clicked the bell, then I'm going to type a phone number in here. You can text me, and every time I go live, I'll text you and let you know the link directly to my live, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or wherever I am. It's 954-245-0086. Just text me and text hashtag live, LIVE, and you will be able to get on my notifications list, and I will let you know when I go live. All right. And so I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you, Ronnie, Rob Collins. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. But yeah, you can get on that text message. I just dropped it in the comment feed. You can get on my text message list, and I'll text you when we go live. That way you're guaranteed to get a notification and know that we're on and ready to start talking. It's going to be a great talk tonight. I'll be digging into the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, a book I wrote and put out 4 years ago, and it's still a bestseller in 5 countries. Still a bestseller in 5 countries. These are people who don't even know who the heck I am. They're getting this book. This book is being referred. This book is being taught in universities and colleges. I have college professors that contact me and tell me that they've been utilizing my book in some of their classes, in their ancient history classes and so forth. Amazing, amazing. I've even had music teachers tell me that they use this book in their music classes. And that was in the UK. Just so many aspects of the Emerald Tablets, that between harmony, harmonics, cymatics. That's the part that they were referencing in their music class, the cymatic version and the harmonics, quantum physics, aerospace technology, space travel, ancient civilizations, advanced construction techniques. I mean, you name it, it's all in these ancient tablets. And so what is the compendium of the Emerald Tablets? Well, I took the Emerald Tablets and the Emerald Tablet singular, because there's 2 different tablets. There's actually way more than that, but I focused on these 2. So the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, both of them are in this one book. And I broke down the tablets, the meaning, and the information, the science, the technology that's encoded into the verses so that everyone can understand exactly what was being said over 36,000 years ago. All right. So it's a pretty interesting thing. All right. Pretty interesting. Ringo James, here you go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we're going to go into this topic tonight. We're going to talk about the UFOs in the Emerald Tablets, which is going to be pretty interesting because what it's going to do, it's going to show you that in ancient times, they are referencing advanced aerospace technology that we have now today, proving that we didn't create or invent anything. We only rediscovered what already existed. All right. What already existed. Local focal sales. Shout out to local focal sales. So, I mean, there is no original idea. Literally everything already exists. And Everything is existing in the ether of space-time. In other words, every thought that we think, it goes out of your skull. We know this in basic science, classical physics. If you go to a doctor and they cut, a brain surgeon, and they put an EEG on your scalp and connect it to a computer, they can read your brain waves. Why? Because your brain waves leave the computer, leave your skull and go to the computer. They go through the wires and go into the computer. The brain waves leave your skull. The brain waves, your thoughts don't stay inside of your skull. They leave. They leave as what? As waves of light. So at all times, your mind is always generating light waves, but light waves that are encoded with information, digital bits of information encoded on the waves of light. That's how it works. So you are literally sending out information into the universe at all times. Now, AJ asked me if there's anybody living on the moon right now. Personally, I believe that there are, but that's another podcast. I'll get into a podcast about that. Maybe I'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when I get back in town. And I'll bring some evidence and some receipts for that as to why I have that hypothesis. And so I'll bring something to back up my hypothesis, and we'll talk about that in a few weeks. So it's a great topic. Thank you for bringing that up. But so your mind is always generating waves of light, just like this cell phone, right? I have a cell phone here. This cell phone and your cell phone is connected to a tower. That's why they call it a cell phone, because cellular towers, these towers transmit a frequency called a microwave. What is a microwave? It's a wave of light, okay? You can't see the microwave, and thankfully we can't see microwaves. We can't see ultraviolet, infrared, we can't see gamma waves. We can't see, if we could see all the different variations of waves of light that exist, we would be completely distracted. We can only see just less than 1% of the light waves that actually exist. Truthfully, we mostly only get RGB. That's it, all right? Red, blue, and green, and combinations of those red, blue, and greens. But there's so much more out there. You have X-rays, you have gamma rays, you got infrared, you have ultraviolet. I mean, it's so much. And so it's pretty interesting. But these waves go out encoded with information. So this cell phone is connected to a tower that has microwaves, right? The data in the phone transmits out. It rides that beam of light, that microwave. It's a light wave. It rides it to the tower. It's piggybacking it to the tower. From that tower, it gets sent to other towers around, up into a satellite, depending on how far you are away. It drops it back down to a tower in your local region. And then the information that's encoded, the digital bits of information that's encoded into it, ride the wave down to the other person's device, and the device lights up, and then the processor inside the phone decodes the encoded piggyback message on the light wave. So we use light waves to send information because we found a way to piggyback the information on the wave of light and let it ride with it out. See? That's how things work. Now, look at the universe as a whole. Your mind is doing that every single thought that you think. You're sending information into space-time 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every idea, every thought. So this is why I believe in the book of life. I believe in, which originates in the Egyptian book of the dead, by the way. The Bible picked it up much later. I believe in the book of life, which is also talked about in the Emerald Tablets, which is 36,000 years old. And the Akashic Records is the same exact thing. There's a record of every thought that has ever been thought of by every sentient conscious entity that exists throughout the entire multiverse. So when you sometimes say, oh man, I had a great idea, a lot of the times you just got on the same frequency of an idea that already existed and you downloaded it, because just about everything has already been thought of and already done and already accomplished. We only rediscover these things. Pretty interesting. So we only rediscover them, all right? And thank you for all the chat donations. If I'm missing any of them as they're coming in, I apologize, but I appreciate you. I'll try to catch them as I can, all right? I'll try to catch as many of them as I can. But we're gonna get to all of them, all right? Anyway, now we're gonna talk about these Emerald Tablets, and I have a little clip that I'm gonna send up to my computer here real quick, because I'm gonna utilize this today as well. But we're gonna talk about the fact that they're referencing technology in the ancient past, and this technology is literally technology that we today are calling advanced. Back then, this technology was advanced. Now what we have today is just catching up to it. And so we're going to cover that here in a minute. I'm just going to send this up to a Dropbox so I can share it up to the screen as well. All right. Now, while that's going up, let me go to my book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. All right. This book is being sold in every single country. Japan is a huge, huge reader of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. So shout out to Japan. That's incredible. Australia, New Zealand, the UK, all throughout Africa. It's really amazing what's going on and how many people are looking for this knowledge, looking for this wisdom. This book was written in a time, not really the book, but the tablets were written in a time where Thoth says it's almost like a time capsule waiting for a new human to arrive to decode it and understand it. At the time that he wrote these tablets, the people around wouldn't have been able to even conceive or understand the meaning in here. But now we have arrived literally at the time that he predicted so many eons ago. And we are the people that have the capability of not only reading them, but also deciphering the encoded messages and understanding it here in this, what we call the modern era, right? Or recorded history. And so I'm going to go in here and just go over a couple things, which are pretty interesting to me. So Thoth is being spoken to by his father, Thothme, who's also known as Ea Enki in the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. These are the same two people. And he's being talked to and spoken to about fulfilling a plan after a global disaster happened on Earth, which is pretty interesting, right? So I'm going to go in here and start off reading directly from the book as we do this. Now, let me see where I'm going to start here. All right. Okay. And Thoth said, speaking the word, calling the power, deep in earth's heart, the sons of Amenti heard and hearing, directing and changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting using the logos, until that great fire changed its direction. Over the world then broke the great waters. Now, what he's talking about here, I'm kind of picking up in the very beginning of the Emerald Tablets. He's talking about deep in earth's heart, the sons of Amenti heard and hearing, directing the changing of the flower of fire. We're talking about the earth's core. We're talking about the internal core of the planet itself. Right now, you're hearing in the news that the core of the earth is getting ready for a reversal. Every so many tens of thousands of years, this happens. It's normal. It even creates a reversal of Earth's magnetic field. So right now, if you go out to any area where there's volcanic activity and you can get your hand on some volcanic rocks, some really old volcanic rocks, and you take those volcanic rocks and you check the position or the orientation of the atoms, if they're more than 27,000 years old, you will find out that the atoms are oriented opposite. In other words, north is south and south is north, meaning that the Earth's magnetic field is recorded in volcanic rocks, okay? And we know this is basic archaeology 101. This is what they teach you. This is basic stuff. This isn't anything crazy. What I'm telling you is really easy stuff. But what's interesting about this is it means that the Earth's magnetic field, it flips every so many tens of thousands of years. On average, around every 26, 27,000 years, the Earth's magnetic field does a flip. Now, what's happening here in this current era, if you begin to research the Earth's magnetic field, you discover that Earth's magnetic field is actually warping and wrinkling in a way that's even letting a lot of radiation and cosmic rays hit the planet because it's bending in a way. And the magnetic north has begun to move. And where is it now? Magnetic north has now moved over Russia. It's actually just now beginning to pass Russia. So it's been ticking, 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 ticking away as our magnetic field is preparing itself for a complete flip, south to north and north to south. All right. And so this is interesting because this is what Thoth is talking about here in the Emerald Tablets. He's talking about something that we're experiencing right now today in modern science. You can Google this, you can look it up. It'll be on all the mainstream news pages that the Earth's core is slowing down and getting ready for a reversal, and Earth's magnetic field is overdue for a magnetic flip. Now, what's more proof of this? Look this up. The fact that airlines have had to rewrite or recode the numbers, the degree numbers on the runways, because all airplanes travel through different coordinates for runway so they can line with the runway properly, right? They have to align with the runway. And even in autopilot, they begin to create that alignment. The plane knows what it's supposed to do, and the pilots, of course, know what they're supposed to do. But because magnetic north has been moving and planes fly based on magnetic north, not North Star, because they fly on magnetic north, they've had to rewrite the coordinates on runway so planes can make the proper alignment to land. Because if they didn't, planes would be crashing into the water on other runways, not being able to land properly. This is how important this is. The fact that magnetic north has moved so much that airports have had to change the coordinates on actual landing strips. But what do we see here? We talk about this in the Emerald Tablets. Pretty interesting. And what does this cause? In this particular situation, it had caused a global disaster, or it was a result of a global disaster. Can you see here what happens? Shifting and using the logos. The logos is an energy. So the energy of the earth has shifted until that great fire changed its direction, until the earth's molten core flipped and went in the opposite direction, which creates what? A magnetic flip. Over the world, then broke the waters. Here comes the global disaster. Over the world, then broke the waters. We're talking about the first occurrence of a great flood in recorded history on these Emerald Tablets. All right. Drowning and sinking, changing Earth's balance, until only the Temple of Light was left standing on the great mountain of Undal. So there's a mountain that's so tall at this time with a temple on top, and the only thing that was standing was the top of the temple. Everything else was completely covered in water because it had such a global disaster happened that shifted the oceans to move across the land in a way, probably had a pole shift of the crust of the earth itself, not to mention a pole shift of the magnetic field. And then on top of that, you have water being displaced in mass, and that mass then shifts and moves over the land, creating a global flood. Until only the Temple of Light was left, standing on the great mountain of Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. If you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the original and full account of the story of Noah, which made it into the Bible. They copied it from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is 6,000 years older than the Bible itself. Zuzudra is actually Noah. And you find that there were people, if you read the biblical version, and of course, if you read the original version in the Epic of Gilgamesh, there were people that survived this great flood. And it's saying it here in 36,000-year-old text, which predates the Epic of Gilgamesh and predates the Bible. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains, called to me then the master, saying, gather ye my people. The master is his father. His father is saying, get your people together, get your crew together. We got work to do. We got to fix this problem here. So Thoth says, take them by the arts ye have learned far across the waters. Take them by the arts ye have learned. In other words, your blueprint, your architectural design knowledge, your language knowledge, your rebuilding knowledge, your everything that's needed to restart civilization. all of that which you have been studying and have been working on all of these eons, it's now time for you to implement that knowledge with your team. Take your team, get them together, and take them across the waters. He says, take them by the arts ye have learned far across the waters until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians. Now, what that means to me is what he's saying is this global flood has gone on and destroyed so much stuff. People had survived, but maybe 1 or 2 generations comes back. And guess what? All of a sudden, we have a situation here where the people have gone from technological knowledge and wisdom to just basically almost cave level again. Okay? He's calling them hairy barbarians, dwelling in the caves of the desert. Follow the plan ye know of. So he's telling these people to follow the plan. So his father already had a plan. They had a plan. In other words, they knew about the flood. They knew about the disaster. And now he's saying, we're going to go help these people. But there's a plan that has been put in place. So Thoth did this. Gathered I then my people, that's his crew, and entered into the great ship of the master. He entered into the great ship of the master. His dad said, you know what? Take my ship. Take my ship and go take care of this business. Now, this ship that he got into, it's not a ship that sails on the ocean. Listen to this. This is very important right here. One of the most important parts in the evidence of something that doesn't sail but flies. Upward, we rose into the morning. He didn't say we got into the ship and sailed out to the sea. He says upward. I don't know of any ships except for spaceships and airplanes that go up. He says, dark beneath us lay the temple. Beneath. He didn't say the water was beneath us or the ocean was beneath us or the sea was beneath us. He said, dark beneath us lay the temple. The temple of where? The temple of Undal, where he just left when his father told him to go and take his crew. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from earth. What are the waters? See, in ancient times, they call the upper atmosphere in the sky the waters. The area where the clouds are and above were called the waters. In the Bible, they call it separating water from the waters because that's a whole nother podcast to get onto, which I will, because that's in the Enuma Elish, which I have the Enuma Elish right here, right? I'll talk about that in another podcast. But the fact of this, vanished from Earth. They've actually left Earth's atmosphere. They've actually gone up so high that they've left Earth until the time appointed was the great temple. So they've traveled some distance. The temple that they were looking for was in the area that previously was flooded. So they've actually got a flight plan. And they've now executed this flight plan. And now here they are. Fast we fled toward the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. Now you see, very few books out there, very few tablets that you discover will reference Egypt as the land of Chem. We know that Egypt was Kemet, ancient Kemet, long before it was called Egypt. Egypt is a fairly new term given by the Greeks. And so the fact that he's referencing this land as the land of Chem lets me know these tablets are authentic. We're talking about the land of Kemet, long before it was called Egypt. But he said, fast we fled toward the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. And the people there who had been surviving and generations have survived, maybe 2 or 3 generations have survived, they're now, back to, chisels and hammers and hunting and everything else, right? They're not at the same technological level that they were before. Just like if we had an EM pulse bomb go off, right? An EM pulse bomb, in other words, not a bomb that hits the land and destroys everything, but it just sends an EMP, electromagnetic pulse toward your city or your country and knocks out all electronics. What's going to happen? All electronics will be down. All microprocessors will be burnt out. Do you know that you can't call anybody, you can't drive anywhere because all cars run off of microchips now? You would have to have an old-fashioned car with points and a carburetor in it, or you won't be able to go anywhere. And not many people have that anymore. So people will be completely disconnected and disoriented. You can't even call for help. Ambulances, nothing. Nobody can get to you. Nobody even knows you need them. So what happens in a civilization like that when everything's burnt out all at once? Well, people start to begin to become hunter-gatherers, right? The barter and trade system takes over. The fiat currency system collapses. It's all about barter and trade. And when the existing things that were here run out and get those resources get used up, then it's down to purely becoming a gardener and growing your own stuff, right? And guess what happens? Second generation comes, but a third generation, it's like, hey man, nobody knows anything. Because I know how to use a cell phone, but guess what, guys? I don't know how to make all the components to make a new cell phone from scratch when the EMP happens. So I can tell my kids all about the cell phone and how great it was. It's going to take some generations for people to reinvent specific things and get things going again and communication going again to even be able to put up a cell system, right? It takes generations. So all of a sudden, it's like a kickback to the Stone Ages. So he says, fast we fled towards the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. Raging they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. So he lands this ship. The people are like, man, what the hell is this? They're scared. They're pissed. They're a little worried, like, this is our territory. What is this thing? This could be danger for us. So when Thoth's doors open to the ship and they begin to walk out, the people of Kemet come running at him with weapons. They're getting ready to try to defend their land and their territory. They don't know if they mean good, or if they mean bad intentions. So we're gonna attack. We'll attack you first. Ask questions later, right? That's basically how humanity always is anyway. Everything we think is coming to kill us. So we attack everything. That's why the UFOs don't come and just land in your front yard, because people will probably go get their guns and shoot them right away. So this is what happens here. Raging they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. Here's what happens. It's very interesting. Thoth says this. Then I raised my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone of the mountain. So he has a weapon that is non-lethal, but has the capability of reaching them via a frequency. It's a frequency weapon. And this frequency weapon freezes them in their tracks and stops them from coming to attack. Now that's pretty interesting. We're talking about 36,000 years ago. This guy's got a frequency beam weapon that can stop a gang of people from coming at him. Now, we were supposed to be literally just, living in caves, right? Just living in caves at that time, using chicken bones and copper chisels to do basic stuff, right? Making spears and trying to kill rabbits for dinner and all that kind of stuff. But then guess what? This guy comes with technology, crazy technology. Let's take a look at this and see if we have this kind of technology in modern times. It's called the active denial system, right? It penetrates the skin 1/64th of an inch, causing the feeling similar to being on fire. And they have different types of active denial system frequencies. It's a frequency weapon where they can make you feel like you want to vomit. They can make you feel ice cold. They can put voices in your head. They can make you feel like you're in pain. All right, all these different things they can do with the active denial system. Let's take a quick look at this short video.
Marines and several other DoD representatives had quite the heated demonstration at Quantico, Virginia from the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate.
This is a military area. Move away from the perimeter. I say again, this is a military area. Move away from the perimeter.
Their new active denial system boasts a reach far beyond any other non-lethal system.
Well, it's a versatile system, and it has a range of non-lethal capability that we can't even come close to with any of our fielded systems today that are in our military forces.
About 7 football fields to give it some perspective. It can deter individuals on a military perimeter all the way up to a riotous crowd. All without permanent harm.
It only penetrates 1/64 of an inch of your skin. Goes very shallow into where your nerve receptors are, and there's no permanent injury caused by it. Very safe system. We've built in some safety margins and training for the operators.
They even let any of the guests volunteer to test out its effectiveness and safety, including the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, and Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Most describe.
Pretty interesting stuff there. That's the active denial system. It's real technology that already existed in ancient times. Thoth talks about this 36,000 years ago when he went to go see the people of the land of Kemet and see what he can do about helping them rebuild after the Great Flood. And this is the technology he used. Now, the first thing that I realized when I saw him utilize this type of technology was the fact that he was not evil. He didn't have any evil intent for the people. Because if he did have evil intent, using a non-lethal weapon would not have been an option, right? He wouldn't have been benevolent. Instead, he would have been malevolent, when he would have tried to hurt, kill, make an example of people. Oh, you want to run at me? Watch this. Boom, boom, boom. Y'all gone, dead. Now everybody else fall in line. Be quiet and listen to what I have to say. So he didn't do that. He didn't do that. Pretty interesting stuff, right? And check this out. And Thoth said, then I spoke to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis. So you see, these Anunnaki beings were actually Atlanteans. Anunnaki means those who came from heaven to earth. It's a generalized term. Just like if you were to get in a spaceship with me and we traveled to another planet, let's say we went to Mars, and we met some Martians there. The Martians say, who are you guys? And we say, we're Earthlings. We're not going to say, oh, I'm a Floridian from Miami. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say I'm an Earthling, right? That's what we tell them. We're Earthling. Both of us, we're from Earth. So Anunnaki is a generalized term, right? Atlantis is their civilization. They built an Atlantean civilization on Earth, the moon, and Mars, according to ancient texts, not according to Billy Carson. Pretty interesting. Atlantis was a global civilization. It was not just a ring city, and I'm going to show you here in a minute. So then I spoke to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying, we were the children of the sun and its messengers. He called himself a messenger, and his crew messengers. He did not call himself God. Okay? What's the last known name of Thoth? Thoth has many names. Somebody's asking in the chat, for those of you who can't see it. He has many names. His name has been Thoth, Dehudi, Jehudi, Tahuti. All right? That's all throughout Africa. He's also been known through Europe as Odin, Mercury. He's also been known as Thor throughout Europe. In the Mesoamerican civilizations in the Americas, he's Quetzalcoatl, Lord Pakal, Kukulkan, Viracocha. So very, very many names. Same person. All right. Good question. So he says, then I spoke to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying we were children of the sun and its messengers. Here's something very interesting now, where it gets really interesting again. Cowed I them by my display of magic science. So what he's saying is, when he says cowed, C-O-W-E-D, that's an old term, of old way of saying I confused them. this technology, when I pulled out my doodads out of my pocket, when I pulled out my watch and my cell phone and some other things that I had that had fancy buttons and lights on it, when I did that, it got them like, wow, this is crazy. What is this stuff? Right? Until at my feet, they groveled. So these people at that point, when a more advanced being with technology meets a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization is going to immediately deify them and begin to pray to them, drop down, become humble, and so forth and so on. And that's exactly what happened. And so somebody's asking about Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley actually deciphered a version of the Emerald Tablets. It's available on Amazon, actually. I don't know about reaching his level of occult power. You can reach any level of any power that you want simply by practicing it. And so, but that's interesting that he did actually go through the Emerald Tablets and come up with his own translation, which is actually available. But check this out. He had magic science. Magic science translates as advanced technology. So he begins to show them his technological doodads that he had. And the people drop to their feet immediately. But guess what he said? Guess what he does? He released them. In other words, he said, no, stop. Don't drop down to your knees and grovel at my feet. Come on, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Let me show you what's going on here. Let me enlighten you. I'm not God. I'm a son of Atlantis and one of its messengers. You see? People say, well, why do you talk about this being Thoth so much? And why do you study it so much? Why did you write a book? Because there's many of these ancient, quote unquote, gods with lowercase g's in ancient texts. And a lot of them are actually masquerade as gods. In other words, they deceive the people and they actually make the people think that they truly are a god so that they can manipulate the people into doing what they wanted them to do. Versus where Thoth was the complete opposite. The complete opposite. That's why I had so much respect for his technique and his angle that he came. He was bringing wisdom, knowledge, languages, building techniques, right? And he didn't charge any money. He didn't make you grovel at his feet. He didn't make you pray to him. That's why I focused on this guy. And I do mean guy because he wasn't a god, and he said he wasn't a god. He said, I'm a son of Atlantis. He even calls himself a son of man several times in this book, which is what? Very reminiscent of the terminology that Yeshua, aka Jesus, uses in the modern day New Testament of the Bible, where he calls himself what? The Son of Man. Interesting. So he says, he released them. He told them, look, at ease, guys, relax. I'm good. We're on the same level. I'm just here to teach you something. Long dwelt we in the land of Chem, long and yet long again, until obeying the commands of the master. Remember, the master, his father, had given these commands to go there and rebuild the land of Chem after this flood. Go out there. So this took time. They weren't there for just a few days. They were there for a very, very long time, right? So he says, until obeying the master, who while sleeping lives eternally. So his father is in the halls of Amenti. That's where he left him. These beings had these things called the halls of Amenti. There were several of them around the planet. Several of them. There wasn't just one, right? And so Thoth says he had his own halls of Amenti, which he had deep beneath the Great Pyramid, and they found those halls. That's a whole other podcast I'm going to do with the evidence of the halls that they discovered. His father had a couple of them. One is also in Africa, which I visited in person and have video clips of me there. Some of you have seen me show some of these clips before. And I'm also doing a whole show, a series on the halls of Amenti, Enki's halls of Amenti. So when this says, who while sleeping yet lives eternally, he's talking about the fact that his father had put his body into one of the rejuvenation chambers in the halls of Amenti. In the halls of Amenti, they have these rejuvenation chambers. They look like gigantic sarcophagus, but these things weigh about 100 tons each. And inside of them is some type of technology. I've been to the one underneath the sands of Saqqara, right? And I've shown videos and photos of that. And I just did a video actually on Jimmy Church's account the other night. We were talking about the halls of Amenti at the Serapeum and showing these giant sarcophagus that were there. I've been inside of them. There's pictures of me on top of them. It's an amazing story, which is coming out very soon in one of my new episodes of Anunnaki History. But he puts his body, so he's sleeping, but yet lives eternally, because they keep transferring their consciousness from one body to the next. This was their secret of immortality. So, and I say in this book, magic science translates into advanced technology that was most likely small devices that he was already carrying like a toolkit. For some 16,000 years, he ruled the ancient race of Egypt. This is the land of Kem. From approximately 52,000 to 36,000. 52,000 BC to 36,000 BC, he ruled over the land of Kem. At that time, the ancient barbarous race, among which he and his followers had settled, was elevated to a high degree of civilization. They slept in rejuvenation chambers for 100 years at a time as they astral projected and traveled amongst the universe. Did you hear what I just said? They slept in regeneration chambers for 100 years at a time as they astral projected and traveled the universe. This is advanced knowledge, advanced wisdom. These people were super, super, super advanced. Super advanced. Check this out. And Thoth said this: I sent for me the sons of Atlantis. This is important. His crew that stayed with him for all those years, all those eons, building up the land of Kem. He now says, our job here is complete. We have reestablished a high level of civilization. We have reestablished a new golden age in the land of Kemet. This is before the dynastic era even begun. Long before the dynastic era it had even begun, right? I have to answer that later, Brand Media, but thank you for the donation. So he says this: I sent for me the sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time, wisdom might rise again in her children. This is interesting. So he's saying this: I took the crew that I had, that had learned with me and helped me rebuild a new civilization in the land of Kem after the Great Flood for eons, well established now. I told them to duplicate what we did here, and I sent them in all directions on earth. You go here, you go here, you go here, you go there, you go there. Duplicate this. Go and raise up men all over the planet. I sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time, over thousands of years, that means over thousands of years, wisdom might rise again in her children. We will go from just, hunter-gatherers back up to a technologically advanced, spiritually advanced civilization again. Long dwelt I in the land of Kem, doing great works by the wisdom within me. So he stayed there. He stayed in the land of Kem while he sent his crew and spread them out all over the planet. Thoth sent his crew to all continents to kickstart new civilizations based on the same basic architecture and sciences. These Atlanteans were global, and each ruler put a genetic marker on their humans, which created the different races we have today. Okay? Cody says the name of the new Thoth reincarnation is Billy Carson. He wrote the Emerald Tablets twice. I did write it twice. You're right. Pretty interesting, Cody. Thanks for the donation. And so this is interesting, though. Think about this for a minute. Thoth sent his crew to all continents to kickstart new civilizations. As I said before, Atlantis was not a ring city only. A ring city, the ring city that sunk in the Atlantic Ocean, was just one capital of many capitals that existed on Earth at that time. Anywhere you are right now in the world watching me speak, you're sitting directly or standing directly on top of Atlantis right now. This earth was literally Atlantis. Another Bible verse, apparently copied from much older text, seems to resonate with the words of Thoth, is Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. It's the same. He's saying the same thing. It's saying the same exact thing. And I do these comparisons between biblical text and Thoth's words, and you can see that in the modern day Bible, a lot of the New Testament, it comes directly from the Emerald Tablets. Now here's interesting. Upward grew into the light of knowledge the children of Chem. Now, Chem is interesting because that's where you get chemistry and alchemy. They come from the land of Chem. That's where it originated. The land of Chem is where you get alchemy and chemistry. And after that, the Greeks and the Romans and everybody else, they learned directly from the Chemists. Watered by the rains of my wisdom, blasted I then a path to Amenti, so that I might retain my powers. He said, so after being here for quite some time, it's been eons now, this body's wearing out. I got to get back to Amenti because I got to get into one of these rejuvenation chambers so that I might retain my powers, living from age to age as a son of Atlantis, keeping the wisdom, preserving the records. Great grew the sons of Chem, conquering the people around them, growing slowly upwards in soul force. Okay, pretty interesting. So I can keep going on that, but I want to move on a little bit. You see how this story is really amazing. We're talking about ancient tablets that were not written by a scribe. See, in ancient times, 80% of the tablets and texts and scrolls that exist were written by a scribe. In other words, a person who was a higher up. Could have been a governor, it could have been a king, it could have been a pharaoh, it could have been a queen, it could have been some type of a businessman or administrator, high-level administrator, or sometimes the people call some of the higher-ups gods. They would have a scribe because they didn't want to do the writing themselves, because good Lord, who wants to write in cuneiform or hieroglyphs or anything else? It takes a lot of time and energy. And that scribe would sit there and dictate, boom, 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 every single thing they say. But Thoth did something a little bit different here. And somebody just says, what do I think about the book of Enoch? You mean this book of Enoch that I have sitting right next to me? I got the book right here, right? I have all the books of Enoch here, actually. This is all of them, not just one. I have all of them. That's another podcast I'm going to do. I'm going to do a whole podcast on Enoch. Thank you for the donation. All right. All right. Hey, appreciate you, Esme Bartonoli, and thank you for the donation. All right. So let me get back to where I was going with this. So we're talking about an advanced civilization here that is rebuilding a place long before the dynastic era of Egypt. The dynastic Egyptians, this is going to be hard for you to grasp. The dynastic Egyptians inherited what was already there. Thoth said, builded I the great pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages. He built the great pyramid. Now, he didn't build it with his physical hands. He instructed and taught the Kemetic people his advanced building techniques using his technology. He had the blueprint, though, and his blueprint can be found all over the planet. Anywhere you go on Earth, you're going to see the blueprint from Egypt everywhere, the land of Chem, everywhere. Because remember, the people that he had as his crew, they stayed with him for eons, and then he said, now go. Now go and spread out all over the planet and duplicate what we did here. And that's why no matter where you go on Earth, you're going to see temples and pyramids that resemble significantly the original works that come out of the land of Kemet, right? Pretty interesting. I have to talk about that in another podcast. Thank you, Mary Sadie. I have a whole thing that I'll be going into on Yahweh and all that stuff. It's going to be a pretty good podcast talking about Yahweh, who was Yahweh Enlil, and everything else. So this is what they did. This is why. Now, if you remember what I said here about the genetic markers, let me go back for a second before I advance too far. I forgot to elaborate on that for a second. Thoth sent his crew to all continents to kickstart new civilizations based on the same basic architecture and sciences. These Atlanteans were global, and each ruler put a genetic marker on their humans. What does this mean? You ever wonder where black people and yellow people and white people and red people all come from? Why is this variance in skin coloration? Why is the variance in bone structure of the face? Why the variance in the structure of the eyes and the orbital bone? Why? Why in the variation of structure of the nose and the ears? Why the variation in the structure of the hair? I'm going to tell you why. Because when you understand, where I started in the tablets at a particular location, but when you understand that these people who was his crew, the crew that Thoth took with him to go to the land of Chem and help rebuild the land of Chem, those people were multiracial people. They weren't all one color people. And when he told them to spread out all over the planet and duplicate what they did there, they took kingship over regions of Earth. And the humans that they ruled over, they genetically put a genetic marker on them. How do I know this? Check this out. In genetics, we found out something very interesting just a few years ago. I'm not black because my ancestors worked in the sun and they had to have better skin to handle the sun, so we're black. That's not why I'm black. You're not white because you were living in a snow-covered area and you had to blend in with the snow so you wouldn't get eaten by dinosaurs and all these crazy cockamamie ideas. The truth is, they did a genetic test between races of people and they found a 2% variance. A genetic marker in race, a 2% variance. Let me tell you what that means. A 2% variance would be the equivalent of me running a foot race against Usain Bolt, the world's fastest human at one time, and me beating him by 15, 20 seconds. That's what that means. It means it's impossible. It means it's impossible. You see? So they started looking deeper into this gene code that is separating the races. They're creating these different facial features and bone structures and hair. And they said, wait a minute, 2%. So they discovered something. It would take millions of years through natural evolution to actually develop a 2% variance in genes to create different races. The problem with that is Homo sapiens sapien is only 200,000 years old. So they're stuck. They're like, what the heck? So the only conclusion geneticists can come up with is that it's an artificial mutation. In other words, somebody did this to us. You know, when you're a farmer and you own cattle, what does a farmer do when they own their cattle to identify their cattle and keep their cattle from being taken by other farmers? They brand it. You got the brand. They got the brand right on their rear butt, right? Yeah, we're branded. Every single person on this planet has a genetic brand on them. You're branded. The people that ruled over different regions of the planet, the people that ruled over the lands of Asia, the people that ruled over the European lands, the people that ruled over the lands of the Americas, different races of people that came with both the Atlantean that then put a genetic marker. So these are my people. Don't you dare touch my people. They can be identified as my people. Pretty interesting. Now, I want to get to this other part here where we're talking about some more space travel. We're moving on. I'm on page 90 in the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Okay, here's where we'll start. Flashed forth my soul through infinity's beauty. Far through space, I flew with my thoughts. Rested I there on a planet of beauty. Strains of harmony filled all the air. Shapes were there, moving in order, great and majestic as stars in the night, mounting in harmony, ordered equilibrium, symbols of the cosmic, like unto law. Many of the stars I passed in my journey, many of the races of men on their worlds. We're talking about multiple planets with multiple races of men, many races of men. Not one race, many races. Some reaching as high as the stars of the morning. In other words, some reaching golden age level, high spirituality, high technology. Some falling low in the blackness of night, some collapsing civilizations. Each and all of them struggling upward, gaining the heights and plumbing the depths, moving at times in realms of brightness, having glimpses of greatness in them, right? Living through the darkness, but trying to gain the light. Isn't that where we are right now? Isn't that where we are right now as a civilization? As a civilization right now, this exact moment, this is exactly where we are right now. Struggling upward, getting the heights, and plumbing the depths. We rise up, right? We then, hey, this is great. We're doing okay. And then some crazy stuff happens when we go back down again. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Why do they brand blacks only with coiled hair? There's no text that explains why that happens. I haven't seen any text about it. I haven't seen any scientific information about it as well. Maybe some people can get together and do some experiments on that. I'd be happy to see the results and report them as well. Each of them all struggling upward, getting the heights and plumbing the depths, moving at times of realms of brightness, living through the darkness, gaining the light. So even though we're living in a lot of darkness, we are gradually still gaining light. Like I said before, what's interesting about darkness and light is this. You have to understand a couple things. This room right now is full of light, so much light that my forehead is glowing, right? And there's no amount of darkness that I can inject into this room that will make this room dark. Light is just that powerful. It's just that powerful. But if I turn all these lights off and make it pitch black in here and just get the cell phone light in my camera on my phone and turn it on, the darkness will flee instantaneously from the light. You see? In the end, the light always wins. And in the end, men are always trying to seek the light. As a whole, more people want light than darkness. This is a fact. The darkness stands out because the mind is attracted to seeing the darkness. You're going to see the things that are dark faster and recognize them faster than you will of the light. That's the way our minds are programmed, because we have this reflex system in us to make sure that we're not killed, attacked, or hurt, or injured. It's a protection mechanism. So we identify the threat instantaneously anywhere. And so darkness stands out like a beacon for us because, oh man, what's going on over here? I got to pay attention to this. It's a threat to my existence, right? But light is still all around us everywhere you turn. The news does a great job in magnifying the darkness and making you feel like the world is coming to an end. Religious zealots will tell you that we're living in the end times. We're not even close to the end times. We're not even close to the end times. Not even in the same vicinity of the end times. Somebody said, could the biblical Enoch be the same person as the Egyptian Thoth? It's quite possible. I'm going to talk about those possibilities when I do my podcast in a few weeks on Enoch, coming up very, very soon. And so the end times would have came and gone a long time ago, because right now is actually one of the best times to be alive on this planet. You don't have a bubonic plague, which killed almost everybody on Earth. You don't have a black plague, which killed almost everybody. You don't have a Spanish flu, which literally wiped out every human being on the planet. You don't have the papal inquisitions, which killed and tortured 80 million people worldwide. You don't have the American Holocaust that killed 111 million indigenous natives in the Americas. They never talk to you about that one, right? You don't have World War I, World War II going on, Vietnam going on right now. Yeah, we do have skirmishes and little wars and private wars going on and happening in different third world countries, and people are suffering from that, yes. But overall, as a whole, we're not even close to where it was in those times. If there was an end of time, it passed. It passed. It absolutely passed already. So stop worrying about this end of day talk and end times talk, and we're coming to an end. We're not even close to coming to an end. Wipe it out of your brain. That's religious zealot talk. They want the world to end because they're waiting to die so they can live. I'm going to live now. I'm going to bring heaven to earth. Casey Gay says, Thoth understood quantum physics and somehow was able to break it down to us. Absolutely. He was an absolute genius. That's why they call him the first intelligencer. That's what they called him in Greece, the first intelligencer. The United States government knows how powerful Thoth was. When you go to the Library of Congress in Washington, there's this gigantic steel door with two doors. Boom, boom. One opens left, one opens right. On one side is Thoth the Atlantean, and on the other side is Odin, which is still Thoth the Atlantean. So he's on the doors to the Library of Congress. Now, this is interesting stuff. Many of the stars I passed on my journey, many of the races of men on their worlds. Now, why am I reading that again? Because it's very interesting to me that in so many texts that I've read, there's very, very, very few. There are some, but very few references to men being of multiple races on different planets and worlds. This is one of the very few that actually exists. One of the very, very few that actually exist. Many the races of men on their worlds. In other words, men on worlds is normal, and races of men on worlds is also normal. It's not abnormal. It's actually normal. Here's interesting here. Know, O man, that light is thine heritage. Know that darkness is only a veil. Sealed in thine heart is brightness eternal, waiting for the moment of freedom to conquer, waiting to rend the veil of the night. There's a moment that we're coming to that we're going to have to address the darkness that we see before us on a daily basis, and that we will begin to extinguish it and remove it from our lives, starting with ourselves, removing the darkness from our own hearts and letting that become the new conscious virus and spreading that type of consciousness virus throughout the planet. Everyone first removing the darkness from their own hearts and then having unconditional love for one another. DeFi Babylon says, did Thoth worship the Most High? Also, was the same messenger called Gabriel. Two very good questions. Thoth never mentions the Most High at all, even though the Sumerian tablets, which he's mentioned in, mention a creator of all. And they knew that this creator of all was way above them, some entity that is responsible for everything in existence. So these beings, the Atlantean people, they knew about God. Also, the messenger Gabriel quite possibly could also be Thoth the Atlantean or someone else, which I'm going to talk about in my episode when I talk about Enoch. All right. Thanks. Good question. Now, let me go to this other section here. But this is interesting. Know, O man, that light is thine heritage. Light is your heritage. In other words, light, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, love is your birthright. It's your birthright. The problem is when we're born, like you heard me say so many times, you're given a name, a race, and a religion, and you spend the rest of your life defending a false identity. You truly never know who you are. You have no clue who you are. You're only basically saying, this is who I am based on what other people told you you are and who you are and what you can and can't do. The school system steals all your originality and creativity, turns you into a robot. The job force takes the last little bit you have left and makes you into a zombie. And then you wait to die so you can live. That's not what it's all about. That's not what it's all about at all. And what Thoth is saying here is, He's saying the light is your birthright. It's your duty and your job now to seek the light and to live now. Your experience here in the third dimension, in this corporeal body, as a sentient human being, is a version of you as God walking in the flesh to experience life from that perspective and gain wisdom and knowledge and understanding for a period of time. It's a fractal of a moment. It's not even, living for 100 years, even living for 150, even living for 1,000 years is less than a blink of an eye on geological timescales. We're not even here that long. It's boop, you're gone. You're here to collect data and find answers and transmit it back to the source. Can you speak Anunnakian? If I told you, I'd have to kill you. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I do understand the language of light, which I've taught in my Egyptian mystery schools, which is the highest level of Egyptian hieroglyphs, as well as cuneiform, which is Sumerian and Akkadian. And I dabbled in, 7 other languages as well. Okay, so now let's get back to what I'm doing here. Oops, there we go. Okay, we got it. Boom. Something else I wanted to cover before we wrap this thing up. Okay, let me get back here. Okay, this is very interesting. Back to the spaceship UFO stuff. All right. Yet ever to him has knowing, open shall be, I'm on page 106, by the way, in the Emerald, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, page 106. Open shall be the path to Amenti. Fast fled we then on the wings of the morning. Fast fled we on the wings of the morning, fled to the land of the children of Chem. They left the Lord, the previous verses, they were at the dweller's place. They were on a whole different place on the planet. And they hopped in their bird wings and they flew. All right. They got back to the land of Chem. There by my power, I conquered and ruled them. He's talking about the fact that he helped raise them up to a high level of civilization. And not only that, he began to rule over them for about 16,000 years, keeping them in point, keeping them on check. Raised I to light the children of Chem. Deep neath the rocks. This is interesting here. Deep neath the rocks, I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. Let me say this again. Deep neath the rocks, I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. He's talking about he buried it underneath the Sphinx. Over the spaceship, erected a marker in the form of a lion, yet like unto a man. That's the great Sphinx. There neath the image rest yet my spaceship, forth to be brought when need shall arise. In other words, when there's a need for this ship, it's there to be brought forth. It's there to be used and taken from underneath the Sphinx. UFOs and the Emerald Tablets. Over the spaceship erected a marker in the form of a lion, yet like unto a man. You see, the great Sphinx, mainstream, it keeps trying to tell people that it used to be a lion's head on it. It never had a lion's head on it. It never, ever, ever had a lion's head on it. Not once did it ever have a lion's head on it. See, these mainstream people, they don't really care about true history. They just want to keep giving you garbage to regurgitate. And they want to give these archaeologists garbage to regurgitate to the people that go and pay big money to go on these tours. The Sphinx's head originally was the head of Thoth the Atlantean. In ancient Sumerian cuneiform tablets, he was called Nigazida. And his father, Ea Enki, said, build the Sphinx and aim it at Leo, because that was a time and era that Thoth had the ability and the right to rule, and put your face on it. So the original face of the great Sphinx was actually Thoth's face. Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, his face was on the Sphinx. At a time when him and his brother continued to have these internal battles. His brother was Marduk. Marduk is in the Bible. Marduk is in the Torah. Marduk is in the Jewish library. He's also known in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where his name is also Amun-Ra. Marduk and Thoth were brothers having internal battles. Marduk was extremely evil and wanted to really masquerade as a god. He really wanted to be a god, and he forced people to worship him and pray to him and everything else. He was having, because of this, he was going head to head with Thoth. Ea Enki said, look, Thoth, I tell you what, man, I'm tired of stopping these fights between you guys. You go to the other side of the planet, go work over there in the Americas, in Mesoamerica, and kickstart a new civilization over there. So Thoth took, according to the Sumerian tablets, Africans, the Olmecs. He took the Olmecs with him, and he went over to Teotihuacan long before Christopher Columbus was even born. We're talking about thousands of years ago. And he built the Teotihuacan civilization in Mesoamerica, all up through Teotihuacan, down into Tulum and Tula, and all the way down into Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula. And the evidence of this is that the Teotihuacan pyramids are an exact identical copy and orientation of the Great Pyramids at Giza. Even the Pyramid of the Sun, which represents the Great Pyramid in Teotihuacan, the base of the pyramid is the exact same dimensions of the pyramid that Thoth built in Egypt. And he says, build it out of the Great Pyramid. So he built the Great Pyramid, took the same exact blueprint, built the same exact system over there in Teotihuacan. The Pyramid of the Sun is exactly 50% the height of the Great Pyramid at Giza. Also another strange coincidence. And both are built on top of aquifers, and both pyramid systems align with the Orion star system. Okay, so interesting. Pretty interesting stuff. So there neath the image rests my spaceship, forth to be brought when need shall rise. So he's saying there's going to be a need for his ship in the future. Know ye, O man, that far in the future, invaders shall come from out of the deep. He's not talking about the deep water. He's talking about deep space. This is interesting stuff that they're talking about in these tablets. Then awake ye who have wisdom, bring forth my ship and conquer with ease. Deep neath the image lies my secret. Search and find in the pyramid I built. So much knowledge here, so many hidden records here, so much hidden technology here. Interesting. Each to the other is the keystone, each the gateway that leads into life. Follow the key I leave behind me. Seek the doorway to life shall be thine. Seek thou in my pyramid. Let's take a quick look here at what they realized about the Great Sphinx. And I've been to the Great Sphinx several times. I've been in shafts that go underneath the Great Sphinx. On my recent trip, we just went to Egypt, October of 2022, and we took 70 amazing people with us. Some of them had a chance to go down on the side of the Sphinx into some of the underground areas under the Sphinx. And so we have the capability of getting this private access. Let me see if I can find a photo for you real quick. We get this private access to these ancient sites. And, it's pretty cool because we literally go there with military and guards, and they make all of the tourists leave. And then the forbidden knowledge crew comes in, and they let us get into the area where nobody's allowed to get into, which is the area where the Sphinx actually sits. It's called the Sphinx enclosure. So we've been inside the Sphinx enclosure. I've been there many times now. We took our people down into the Sphinx enclosure. I have a photo here. I'm going to save this photo right quick, and then I'm going to pop it up here on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. We take them in between the Sphinx's paws. You get a chance to touch the actual dream stela in between the Sphinx's paws, all of that. And I'm making this point for a reason, which I'm going to get to here in a second, as this image uploads real quick. And then I'm going to play a short video about what they have begun to discover in terms of space underneath the Sphinx. But you see here, right? We are standing directly in the Sphinx's enclosure, which nobody gets to do this. And we're actually touching the Sphinx, talking in front of the Sphinx. I did a whole lecture in front of the Sphinx. And we went around the back, around the front, and everything else. We did a lot, right? And so check this out. Let's see if this is it here.
So this is called, this is a side experiment. It's called seismic tomography. With seismic tomography, you can test for spaces.
This is one of those non-invasive technologies that I was referencing.
Right. So the seismic tomography experiment was they were listening here and then hitting the surface around the Sphinx, right? And they were describing several areas that could be voids, okay? One of those voids, which we all think is probably the most likely candidate for the quote-unquote Hall of Records, starts something like here, extends forward by 12 meters, and then 9 meters to the side. It's a big place. And Schock and Dobecki concluded that the signal actually is fairly regular in terms of, right angle corners, sharp edges. So they think this is a man-made chamber about 5 meters below us. It's full of water, most likely, because the groundwater level comes up to about 5 meters. So, but according to my reconstruction under the Sphinx, this archive was breached. This is not sealed, which is what Edgar Casey said. I think and I have evidence for it, right? So I think this archive was breached a long time ago. The content was removed, and it ended up in Hermopolis in Middle Egypt.
Pretty interesting there, see? So Chris Jackson says, who is the author of the Bible, and why did they take all the books out? Well, the author of the Bible are the followers of Hermes. Who's Hermes? The guy on the front of my book, Thoth the Atlantean. He's always depicted with the head of an ibis bird, even though he had the face of a man. The ibis bird is just a symbology of bringing darkness to light, because the ibis bird has to put his beak deep into the mud to get the sustenance, right? And so the followers of Hermes, they were called Phoenicians. They actually began to discover copies of ancient tablets and records that had been handed down and saved for generations and generations. And they began to copy a lot of those cuneiform tablets and other cylinder scrolls and papyruses onto scripture paper, parchment paper. And that paper then was put into vases, and they would study and research this stuff in hiding in different cave systems and so forth in the Middle East and other areas in Africa. And then you fast forward to like 100 AD, archaeologists and researchers began stumbling into these old caves and finding these vases full of all of this, these curled up papers with writing on them, these verses and so forth. And this was the biblical, or became the biblical text, right? It became the biblical text. And so what's interesting is, get this up screen. So what's interesting is the people that were copying this text and information, they were copying it from already existing information. And then you fast forward, you have so the Bible was written between 100 AD and 900 AD. It was written long after the people that were spoken about in the Bible were long gone and dead. In other words, there was nobody walking around in real time writing information as somebody spoke it. It just didn't happen. Matter of fact, the disciples themselves were actually illiterate men. They couldn't even read or write. So they weren't writing a damn thing. And so the biblical text was then eventually it became biblical because the Council of Nicaea got together and started going through the text and picking what they wanted and taking out what they didn't want. And that's how you get the Apocrypha text, which I have all the Apocrypha here in my house. And so the Apocrypha was text. They were like, you know what, let's leave this out. I'll put this in, take this out. Put this in, take this out. And they began to curate this book. And then they begin to alter and change translations ever so slightly, like forgetting to put the S on the end of God, because everywhere in the Bible where you see the word God singular, it's actually supposed to be God's plural from the original translation. So they made slight modifications like that, altered phrases, altered certain verses to their liking, and then they made it a canonized book. Actually, originally became the Torah before it became canonized. I'm sorry. Then it became a canonized book after more was added to it, like a New Testament and so forth. It's a long story. I can do a whole video about that as well, but it's pretty interesting stuff. All right, pretty interesting. And so, so we have evidence here, at least in a written form, that people in ancient times had information or foreknowledge of spaceships, of an invader coming from deep space, of a need to use a ship that's buried to be able to defend Earth against these invaders, according to this text. This is pretty interesting stuff, pretty deep stuff. We have a being that has a capability of traveling to different planets and watching civilizations rise and fall. You know how long that takes to watch a civilization rise and then fall? To observe many races of men on their worlds rising to the heights and plummeting to the depths? Pretty interesting, amazing stuff. I'm telling you, this is why this book is so amazing, because the stuff in here that's being talked about in ancient times is literally mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. If you know Eric von Daniken, he's like the great-great-granddaddy of the ancient astronaut theory. He wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods in the 1960s that became one of the best-selling books of all time. Over 80 million copies sold worldwide and translated into every language on the planet Earth. He said on the back of my book, is one of his reviews, he said, "I am so impressed with your work and your research. It was a pleasure." George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM says, "Billy Carson is an amazing researcher I have admired for a very long time." Great reviews from two incredible men that's dedicated their whole life to learning occult wisdom and knowledge. So I want to thank everyone who has had a chance to read the book and check the book out. And I also want to talk to you real briefly about the Forbidden Conscious Awards that are coming up. But I am going to drop a link to Egypt in the chat. So I'm going to drop it in there right now. So if you want to go to Egypt with me this year in October, some people in the chat were already there with me in October of last year, and now it's coming back again. We're going to take another 70 people to Egypt again. We're going to do a 10-day tour and a 4-day tour. I just dropped the link in the chat. If you want to come to Egypt, I will be your tour guide. I will be giving you the knowledge, the real knowledge on every site. I'll be spending all the time and energy with you guys. Sorry for coughing. My voice is now in the 8th hour of talking here. I will be the one hanging out with you, taking photos with you on all these ancient sites and locations. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Okay. Sheldon says, "Is there civilization underwater in the seas?" I believe that there are civilizations underwater. I believe that's the best place to hide. If you look up the record of Christopher Columbus' captain's log, captains only write things in their log that they feel or deem are really truthfully important. They don't waste their energy writing things in their log that they don't need to write. And so in his captain's log, Christopher Columbus stated that an object came up out of the ocean like a bright light and illuminated the sky right in front of their ship. What do you think that is? There were no light bulbs back then. There was no electricity back then, right? So what came up out of the ocean and illuminated the sky? I believe it was a USO. I think that's what that was. I think that there's definitely one of the best places to hide a base would be in the water. That's my personal opinion. I don't have any factual evidence to back that up. All I can tell you is a story that I knew about Christopher Columbus and his captain's log, and many accounts of in ancient times of bright lights coming up out of the oceans. So you have to hypothesize what that could possibly be, especially at a time where light bulbs didn't even exist, right? Pretty interesting stuff. So I'm going to talk to you now real quickly. I did drop the link to Egypt down there. But I'm going to also talk to you about the Forbidden Conscious Awards. I'm going to drop that in the chat as well. And all this will be in the caption of this video. We're going to be giving awards out to people who have been working and busting their tail, dedicating their life to helping people and researchers and archaeologists and authors and podcasters and radio hosts and everything else we're going to begin to give them awards every single year. And so this is the Forbidden Conscious Awards first annual award show. All right. And we want to see everyone there because it's going to be amazing. Hey, everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards, the first annual event of its type. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. And guess what? It's time to give them their flowers while they're still alive. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person for this amazing level event. It's going to be above the Oscars, above the Grammys. And guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com. And the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. And you want to be there in person because I'm going to be speaking. That's right. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. If you want to come to a mini conference, this is the place to be because I'm going to give you the knowledge that night as well as performances. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's going to be a night to remember. You don't want to forget this. And you help vote by going to forbiddenknowledge.com. Go to the Conscious Awards link. You can text in a vote for who you want for any category, as well as if you're out of the country, you can use the web form ballot to still vote for anyone you think is worthy of being honored that night. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I want to see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023. All right, I want to see everyone at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. I want to see all of you guys here. It's going to be an amazing, amazing, amazing night, something you don't want to miss. And guess what? Everyone that buys a ticket to the Forbidden Conscious Awards will get a certificate from me that will give them airfare and hotel for two. You only have to pay the taxes of $199 per person, and you will have your hotel and airfare covered. Now, if you want to upgrade that airfare to a better airline or a better seat in the plane and things like that, that's up to you. You can deal directly with the actual tour guide or the vacation person that will be booking it for you. There are some restrictions, including you can't get this if you live outside of the continental U.S. It's only good for people in the continental U.S., unfortunately. However, it is something from one of our sponsors that we do have available. So when you buy a ticket, you will be able to get that. Another amazing thing is at the actual Conscious Awards, we are going to have an Audi A4 parked at the venue with a big red bow on it. We're going to give that car away that night, an Audi A4 for Forbidden Knowledge, right there at the actual award event. You have to be there in person. If the person's ticket is called and they're not there, they won't win. We'll call another number. If your ticket number is called and you're at the event, you will win. You have a chance to win that vehicle. So the vehicle will be the deed, the title, everything will be given to you on site, be signed right over to you right there at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. All right. So it's going to be an amazing, mind-blowing event, something that you don't want to miss. And it's going to be incredible, absolutely incredible red carpet event. Walk the red carpet with me, take great photos. If you get box seats, you're going to be able to go into private access for the pre-event mixer and meet up with me, Jimmy Church, Chris Spencer, all the other artists, and all the nominees and winners before the event even starts in a private room, private mixer with photos and networking and talking and everything else. That's going to be incredible. In your box, you'll have a bottle of champagne and some hors d'oeuvres. And anywhere you go in this venue, it's breathtaking. No matter where in the venue you go, it's one of the most breathtaking venues that exist in the world, the Adrian Arts Center for Performing Arts in Miami, Florida. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be amazing. It's not going to be televised. It's not going to be televised. I saw somebody asking. So it's going to be amazing. All right. Roderick Martin is here in the chat. He's saying, go vote for Roderick. So go vote for Roderick. Vote for Roderick.com. You can vote. So you can vote for anyone that you want to win any category. The voting is up to you guys. So go to forbiddenknowledge.com, click the link. I'll drop it in here one more time to the Conscious Awards. You can also click Roderick Martin's link and go vote directly for him if that's who you want to vote for. But there's many more categories. So you vote for him for his category or categories. But then don't forget, there's many more categories to vote for as well. You can vote by text message in the United States, or if you're out of the US, you can vote by web form ballot. So I just dropped the link for voting, as well as purchasing your tickets to the actual event. And I want to see you there because I'll be speaking that night, and I'm the only speaker. In terms of Conscious Talk, I'll be the thought leader speaking, your keynote speaker that night. I'll be dropping the knowledge in the house. It's going to be like a mini conference. You're going to get a great lecture and workshop out of me that same night, something you don't want to miss, because I'm not going to be doing a lot of these conferences all over the place anymore. I'm going to be doing my own primarily moving forward. It's all going to be Forbidden Knowledge conferences only, or conferences that I have a partnership in. If I don't have a partnership in it, or I don't own it outright, you won't find me at any of these other places. I'm not going to be at the Conscious Life Expo. I'm not going to be at Contact in the Desert. I'm not doing any of those conferences anymore. Nothing against those people. They're great people. I love those people. I love the people that run those conferences. It's just time for me to move on. I'm on another level, and that level requires me to take more control of my own destiny. And so that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I have begun to do already. So I'm starting the Forbidden Tour, and I'll be going on my own tours moving forward into the future and controlling my own destiny and being in places, that I decide I want to go and where the people want me to be. All right. So it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible, and I'm looking forward to all of it. And I got one last thing that I want to show you guys before I pop out of here. Some of you guys will have already bought a raffle ticket to win the Mercedes-Benz AMG. We are still raffling this car off. As you know, I've given away the Ford GT. I gave away a Rolls-Royce Ghost last year. The winner of that ended up with $88,000 in cash because he ended up needing to sell it. So he sold it, got $88,000 cash after taxes. That was Austin Henry. Now this year we're doing the Mercedes-Benz AMG. Check this out. The money from the raffle will go to help communities and schools, which is a program, a nonprofit that is designed to help underprivileged children. Only 10% goes to administrative fees. 90% of the money that they take in goes to help the children. There's a video of us talking to the board of directors, one of the head of the board of directors of CIS on this YouTube account. And it's an amazing program that we've been involved in. All of your chat donations go to help those children, and you can hear directly from the children in that video that's on this account. It'll make you cry. I'm just telling you right now. So be prepared. Have a tissue and a napkin, because these kids give their heartfelt thanks for what the change that have brought, we all have brought into their lives. And you have been a special part of that by giving these chat donations. And we want to thank you so, so much for that. All right. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. We love you. It's been a great night. Thank you for spending this time with me. And we have to wrap this up tonight because I have to make a few more important phone calls. I hope you learned something from this. If you don't have my book, go on Amazon.com and get the compendium of the Emerald Tablets on Amazon.com if you don't have it. All right. It's by Billy Carson, of course. If you type my name in, everything that I've got on Amazon will pop up. That's a no-brainer right there. Just type in Billy Carson in the search box, and the compendium of the Animal Tablets will pop right up. It's a bestseller. It's a 5-star book with over almost 2,000 reviews that are all 5-star. Think about that for a second. Do you understand how hard it is to get a 5-star review? It's very hard. Well, there's 2,000 5-star reviews. Incredible. So again, thank everyone. I appreciate you guys. Read this book. It's a life changer. It's a life changer. And give it away as a gift to somebody as well. All right. Anyway, I got to run. I got to take care of some more business. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all. Please